Today, we're talking about the first multi-billion-dollar Filipino company that's been listed in the Philippines and in Singapore. Now I'm talking about Emperador, which is listed on the SGX. Now this is a story of how one of the world's poorest countries became the biggest producers of brandy. Well, we're about to find out starting from the very beginning. This is a story about Emperador. Now Andrew Tan, the founder of Emperador, is a classic rags to riches story. When Andrew Tan was a kid in Hong Kong, his family used to share an apartment with 4 other families. Everyone had to share one bathroom and all their stoves were on one table. Now at 16, Andrew moved to Manila to rejoin his dad who worked in a radio factory. He was so poor he couldn't even afford to take a bus to school. Now Andrew used to work for Leonardo Tai, one of the richest tycoons in the Philippines. Now more on that later. Now finally, Andrew ventured out on his own and he began his own glass container manufacturing. He then ventured into real estate, property development, tourism, hotels, and shopping malls. Eventually, Andrew became the master franchisee for McDonald's in the Philippines, and today his company, Alliance, is listed by Tatler as one of the biggest leading conglomerates in the Philippines. Alliance owns 84.57% of Emperador. Now in the 1990s, when Andrew launched Emperador, the Philippines were already big on spirits. In fact, the Philippines are the biggest consumer of gin. The Philippines are also the biggest producers of gin. Now as a Filipino brand, Ginebras and Mughal makes the world's 2 best-selling gin brands. The brand was established in 1834, nearly 200 years ago. Now, so how is Andrew going to break in the market with his brandy? The answer? Branding the brandy. Now, instead of following other liquor brands with their age-old strategy of producing TV and other ads focusing on sexy women and sexy images, Tan wanted the Emperador brand to be about success and all the values associated with it. Hard work, drive, ambition, listening to your parents' advice, professionalism, and ambition. So he made sure his ads were people were only wearing coats and suits. Now, to understand why this approach was meaningful, note that Philippines was one of the poorest countries in the region at that time. Basically, if you were a young Filipino, the only way out of your economic situation was to achieve success. So this was the cornerstone of the Emperador marketing strategy: optimism, hard work, and success. Now, there were clear signs that this marketing strategy worked because today, Philippines is the 2nd biggest consumer of brandy, which in turn has helped Emperador become the top-selling brandy in the world. In fact, the company has said in the past that Emperador is actually a proxy to the Filipino economy. Now, if all your growth coming from one country is not a very good idea, this is what happened. From 2014 onwards, Emperador embarked on a global expansion spree. The goal was to bring Emperador almost everywhere into the world. To help achieve that, Emperador made a series of acquisitions. In 2014, Emperador bought White & Mackay, a major whiskey brand. You might ask, why whiskey? Well, at the time, whiskey was the 2nd fastest growing spirit segment in the world, right next to brandy. Plus, White & Mackay had a global distribution network in over 50 countries. Via this acquisition of Emperador Brandy, this will give Emperador Brandy access to the same network in over 50 countries. In 2016, Emperador bought Mexico's #1 selling brandy, Presidente. Emperador's biggest deal so far was in 2015 when it bought Fantador, Spain's oldest and biggest brandy company. For a company that wasn't even around 30 years ago, literally unheard of, that's a huge achievement. One may ask, since Emperador is so successful, why can't it just buy out other brands and not its actual plants? Fact, this is not Coca-Cola. You just can't replace the factories anywhere in the world. Let me explain. Fantador is based in Jerez, where some of the world's top wines are made. By buying Fantador, Emperador gained access to Bodegas Fantador, Spain's largest and oldest brandy seller, established in the 1600s. Now think about it, that's more than 400 years ago. Now to give you guys an idea why cask is such a huge deal, in July of 2022, a single whiskey cask was sold for a world record of 16 million pounds. Now that previous record was 1 million pounds. So Emperador actually scooped up some really juicy extras. Not only did they buy their physical assets, they had access to their intangible assets as well. For example, Fantador uses traditional techniques to make their brandy. For example, like breeding falcons to use them for pest control. Now, this gives Emperador a very huge economic moat, and what they do have is a unique heritage. Now, if you have actually bought a luxury item before, like a Rolex, you realize that heritage is super important. Now, heritage of a brand can factor into its value as well. That's the reason why many of the world's biggest luxury brands have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, back to Emperador. Now, since the 17th century, members of Spain's royal family has been a huge fan of Emperador, right? Their strong relationship between the two families have actually allowed the Spanish royal family to give Emperador the rights to use their royal coat of arms on their cars. How cool is that? By acquiring Emperador gained a world-class premium Brandy setup. It also gained a historic brand name and the know-how on how it can use it for its own brand. Clearly, Emperador is not done yet. It is very likely we hear more acquisitions in the future. Emperador's strategy to gain access to distribution networks and in some cases manufacturing facilities that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. Now with Emperador expanding, you might be wondering, what's the difference between all these drinks? Let me know in your comments. Don't forget to like, share and hit that subscribe button.